All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. This is part two of. I didn't know this was going to be part two. One thing I learned in the last podcast is keep track of the time, because I don't know if those of you who followed me, this might shock you. You might not be aware of this, but I have this tendency to ramble and lose track and just go off on one. I know. Be careful. If it's subtle, you might notice it. But that being said, anyway, so in the last podcast ended quite abruptly. Hopefully, if I keep an eye on the fucking time, but I said pretty much all I needed to say. But I'd like to lighten the mood a little bit now, because this is going to be taking a break from stuff that's in the news and going. I think if there's one thing we've learned in the last few years, it's that. What really matters is what do the people think? What do the real people think? Now, believe it or not, there are still people out there who actually write letters into newspapers, and send in emails and stuff that get printed, right? And there's a wonderful Facebook group, that documents all of these. I recommend you should follow, called Pointless Letters. But I thought I would do these are the people who don't have Twitter and who don't have the motivation to set up a blog or even a YouTube channel or a podcast. They just want to get something off their chest, so they send in a letter so I thought I would just read you some of these. These are just to give you an idea of what the boomer on the street is thinking, and they are mostly men. Again, those of you who listen to my YouTube channel, listen to my videos where I listen to LBC callers. This is pretty much this, but in text form. These are people who feel they need to, express themselves via some, quite, devastating prose. Anyway, this is from Sid Vaughan in Birmingham. More mistletoe and wine from the po-faced PC brigade. Oh dear, now it seems mistletoe is on the consent list, in inverted commas, I don't know what, the consent list. So beware all you party lovers, a stolen kiss under it could land you in prison. Okay, I really don't think that a stolen kiss under the mistletoe is going to land you in prison. Or what I think they're suggesting here, is again, it's not stolen. I mean, stealing something is against the law, isn't it? I mean, you are stealing. So but as for most Christmas songs, I imagine all their lyrics are probably deemed inappropriate by now. No, not all, just two to my recognition. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Little Drummer Boy. Although quite frankly, how that slipped through the cracks, I don't fucking know. I've little doubt that by Boxing Day Santa could be on the sex offenders register. Imagine thinking that. Imagine sitting there going, God, Santa. Well, when you think about it, let's be honest. If there was an actual, let's pretend that there was a bloke who did what Santa did. He kept track of. If you found out some random geezer, some bloke lived by his own, some old who never hangs out with anyone, never comes out. You only see him. He only comes out at night once a year, right? He's got a farm with some reindeer out back. He's got a load of midgets working, a load of small people working for him, right? He's got a big beard. He keeps himself to himself. And he's got a long list, but you've come across a list of children with naughty and nice written on them because he's been stalking them throughout the year. I don't know about you. I think that's worthy of an investigation, at least, isn't it? Sid continues. It seems there is little left of what we used to call fun. Yes. There is little. Although I do like the fact that he's considering the idea that Santa Claus, a fictional character, could be on a sex offenders register. That would be quite funny. It seems there is little left of what we used to call fun. Oh yes, sexual harassment in the workplace, and a couple of Christmas songs, and Santa Claus not being considered a sex offender. Something that literally isn't true, by the way. Something that hasn't happened. I've just been down to my solicitor to draw up a consent form for the missus to sign in case I overdo the brandy on my Christmas pud. Okay, now, I just want us to consider that last thing there. I've just been down the solicitor to draw up a consent form for the missus. Just to go, are you suggesting, Sid, is it just me, or does he sound like he's basically admitting that in the past, on Christmas Day, he's got drunk and he may have raped his wife? I mean, is it just me? Barry Lazenbury in South Gloucestershire says, I see the BBC Christmas tree had mostly red baubles, but no blue or yellow ones. I suppose that shows where the BBC's political preferences are, and may be been the real reason it was taken down. What the absolute... Yes, all those people who were complaining that there was a bias in the media against Labour, the BBC Christmas tree apparently only had red baubles on it. You know, not yellow or blue ones. Now, this might not be to do with the fact that red is a Christmas colour and blue or yellow isn't. Although, basically, looking at the election result, Barry, I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest that maybe, just maybe, it didn't really do Labour any favours. That subtle little, that subtle, bit of brainwashing by the BBC. And did they take it down? Who keeps track of the BBC fucking Christmas tree? This is from Brian in Nottingham. The health and safety snowflakes are at it again. Christmas and New Year can now damage your health, according to one university study. So that's Christmas and New Year cancelled? No. Right? No, that's not... It's not been cancelled, Barry. Brian, sorry, you all look alike to me. Right? It's not been cancelled at all. It still happened, didn't it? No one suggested it was cancelled. It was a university study into the sort of, into how, into the effects of people's health over the Christmas period due to things like, our diet or, drinking or, stress maybe, lots of, running, blood pressure, things like that. It would just, and it found that during Christmas and New Year, shock and horror, it tends to be, people tend to have an advert. This is why January is the time when most people, sign up, is the most sort of popular month of the year for gym membership, or people to get a gym membership, where 70% of people who have a monthly gym membership don't use it for the rest of the year, right? Perhaps we should cancel everything that makes us happy. Nothing's been cancelled. Right? Maybe that's the only way to make these interfering drips happy. Or will they simply want to cancel being miserable? Well, what the fucking hell would you do? Do they want to cancel being miserable? Isn't that a good thing? So people be happy being miserable. You do realise the paradox you've set up there, Brian. Do you know what that word is, paradox? Right? I love this thing. I love the fact this is what happens now. This is what it is. It's people just pretend something's happened and then act like that. Like, no one cancelled Christmas, and no one here's a question. How would you cancel New Year? Right? Just out of curiosity, how do you cancel New Year? You can't cancel. New Year's happens regardless of what we do on it. Right? You can't cancel it unless you're going to suggest we just don't have a New Year ever again. We just keep inventing, we just have January 2.0 2019. And then February 2, and then after, we just keep going. Anyway, this is from Derek in Bridlington. Taylor Swift is one of the loudest voices regarding the #MeToo campaign, and yet is shown in your paper wearing a look-alike teddy and stockings. Somehow the two don't really go together. Or do they if you are rich, opinionated and famous? Yes, how dare this woman who is a supporter of victims of sexual assault wear underwear in a you know, what. See, this is everything. If you live near Derek Richardson in Bridlington, right, keep an eye on him. Right. English, oh God, rubbing out, this is about James Bond. The new James Bond movie. Rubbing our noses in it with a black woman 007. Black spaceman clangers. OK, let's have Hugh Grant playing Nelson Mandela. That's from English Bob. Now, this is the likelihood that the next 007, after Daniel Craig, is going to be played by, I don't know her name, forgive me, but she's a black woman. Neither does these guys, so it doesn't really matter. But it's black woman, that's all you need to know. The fact she's not going to be playing James Bond, she's going to be playing Agent 007, which is a different thing, which is part of the sort of thing about 007. 007 is the name of the agent. James Bond just happens to be the name's given to the agent, right? This apparently, but I do like his comparison of saying, OK, let's have Hugh Grant playing Nelson Mandela. As if, first of all, I would be totally up for that. I just want to say now, if they were going to make a biopic of Nelson Mandela and they had Hugh Grant playing him, not and I want to make it clear, I don't want him blacked up, I don't want it offensive, just Hugh Grant as Hugh Grant playing Hugh Grant, which is all Hugh Grant's ever done. Hugh Grant, I would totally go and watch that. But he also seems to be this is the difference, is you don't seem to be aware of the fact that James Bond isn't. These people are so obsessed with the fact as to what colour and gender and race and ethnicity and nationality, a fictional character is, forgetting the fact that they are indeed fictional. Nelson Mandela is not a fictional character. You do know that, don't you, Bob? Please tell me you know that. It's important to me that you know that. This is from just someone from JL. This is the shortest one, but I love it. It goes, where the fuck did these PC brigades get their power from? But that's it. That's all they wrote in. Where the fuck did I know JL. It's almost as if, it's weird, isn't it? When you look at, the fact that who's in power, and who's in charge, and you look at all there's no, you wonder how they managed to, it's almost as if this is mostly made up bullshit, isn't it? Now, one from a woman, brilliant. Cynthia Harrod Eagles in Middlesex, hyphenated name, posh. As it would be uncomfortable for the Prime Minister either to allow or deny a second Scottish independence referendum, this is her solution to that. You ready? Why not call a referendum on whether the Scots actually want one? Well, now, so rather than calling a referendum on Scottish independence, you want the Prime Minister to call a referendum on whether or not they want a referendum. And you don't seem to think that this is kind of redundant, because obviously the people who do want independence are going to say, yes, we want a referendum, whereas the people who don't want independence will say, no, we don't want a referendum. So whatever the result of that one is, you can pretty much determine that's going to be the fucking referendum. So you might as well just... Why am I explaining this to an adult? This is from KK. Just 2 Ks. Global warming has accelerated in the last 20 years, which coincides with the internet and Wi-Fi and the increased use of satellites. Now, this next the next sentence... The first 3 words are fantastic. I'm no scientist, but am I the only person who thinks there's a connection? Switch the satellites off for 2 years and let's see what happens. I'll tell you what'll happen. Fucking planes will fall out of the fucking sky. Nothing will work. That's what'll happen, you fucking prat. Turn the satellites off. I love the fact you think you're no scientist, and yet you think no scientist has considered this. But I just love the fact you've jumped to turn the satellites off. Go on, just for a laugh. Do you know what? I'll be up for that. Just do it randomly. Just see what happens. This is from Bert Howard in Derbyshire. I fear that we poor menfolk... Just think about that for a second, the kind of person who talks like that. I fear that we poor menfolk are being swept away by the feminism flood tide. Yes, heavy flow. The BBC are prime movers in this, with several of its programmes specifically for women, and none catering solely for men. Because there's nothing for, because there's no other channels, are there? Surprisingly, the English language shows similar bias. Oh, you're blaming language now, are you? Who invented the English language? Right, but here's the thing: what he's about to say is wrong. He's now claiming the English language is sexist. Ready? For example, a chauvinist tends to be defined as a man who hates women. There appears to be no word for females who are male haters. Misandrist, yes. That's what it is. Or female chauvinist. Right. Chauvinism is not as a gender... Oh, forget it. Misogynist is another word that seems to have no female equivalent. Misandrist, right. Just you could have looked this up. For someone who cares so much about the English language... Feminist, coined in the 1800s, is... Oh, so you know about feminist, the word. You know the entire history and etymology and origins of the word feminist, but you couldn't be bothered to look into a dictionary and look up the synonym for it. There is no equivalent for a supporter of men's rights. Yes, there is, mate. It's called a Bert. We'll call that a Bert from now on. If you support men's rights, you're a Bert, or you're an anti-Bertist. You're engaging in Bertism. Right. Now, this is from Stan Clayton in Worcestershire. He's got an idea of how to deal with the drug problem. Here's my method, and he puts the meth, and he certainly puts do meth into method for combating drug problems. Mix any confiscated drugs with a powerful laxative. Then, let them be stolen from where it's been locked up, so it gets back on the market. Why would you let it be stolen? Why wouldn't you just put it back into the market? The embarrassment and ease of being caught so easily would deter even the hardest drug takers. Yes, because if there's one thing we learnt, mate, from the film Trainspotting, it's that crapping yourself in public is not really much of an issue. You don't know much about drug addicts, do you? Right? Being caught in public, because they tend to often go out so often, don't they? Forgetting, of course, certain drugs actually cause constipation. Yeah, powerful laxative. I like the fact he wants police to confiscate drugs and then put them back into the actual system so that addicts can take them. Because a powerful laxative, is really going to... you're still taking the drug, you fucking moron. Oh no, I had a heroin addiction, but I shit myself in public once, could not, I died of embarrassment. Now, with Brexit approaching, it's nice to see that some people, like Henrietta Thews in Edinburgh here, are actually are trying to look on the bright side. He said, could a no-deal Brexit be the answer to the obesity problem in this country? She's just asking questions. Yes, it could be. Yes, not having food it will also do it will do wonders for for the NHS waiting list or oversub, because people will just die. To quote Alan Bastard in 1984, in the good old days, you were poor, you got ill, and you died. And this final one from Claire Bellenis in West Yorkshire. It's a very simple one. Can someone come up with a TV set that doesn't broadcast the BBC? Like, well, yeah, Claire, like, all of them. Like, they only broadcast what you don't have to watch the BBC. You're not obliged to watch it. You could just change the channel and watch literally anything. Or go on the internet. Get a streaming... Netflix or Now TV, they don't show the BBC. Or, just... Have you got like a sentient television? Is it like HAL in fucking 2001 Space Odyssey? Now, folks, I was, before... Now, I'm going to end this one, folks, by, because I never talked about, I never talked about the, some of my favourite stories. But last year, some of my favourite stories did centre around, a concept which you'll maybe familiar with called mansplaining. And now this one... Now, there is potentially another entire fucking podcast on this, but for me, there are some great examples of the best example, and I actually made a video about this, was from a guy called Paul Bullen, who in February of last year, basically the Guardian, obviously had written an article and had tweeted out. An article called Me and My Vulva, 100 Women Reveal All. Now, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, but nevertheless, I didn't read it. But anyway, Paul Bullen, who according to his Twitter account, says he's a doctor. And I'm going to shock you here. I did look into this, and it looks like this is legit. Just goes to show, having a PhD does not, does not substitute for personality or being very lonely. But anyway, so Paul Bullen replied to this article called Me and My Vulva, 100 Women Reveal All, with this one tweet, which I'm sure you may remember if you followed the story. The correct word is vagina. Now, Paul Bullen went on, to then, just clearly not got much on, I'm guessing. He then went on even further to he was like, he had literal female gynecologists correcting him on this, and he would not budge. He was going for days, and literally like 3 days later. It's so hilarious was it that the Guardian actually did a follow-up article just about what this guy and all the shit he had written, right? And at one point, as is the way, now, as you might expect, and as is justified in this case, because I know some people object to mansplaining, it can get thrown out and just used as which isn't, I'm not completely unsympathetic to, but not in this case. He was, obviously accused of mansplaining, and he responded to this accusation by saying, someone said, "Thanks for mansplaining on something you obviously know nothing about." And he replied saying, "That's an incorrect use of the word mansplaining. Not that I want to legitimise the term, but by its own definition it requires more than just having a man just who is explaining something. So this guy went from mansplaining to female gynecologists what a vagina was, to mansplaining, to female gynecologists and women in general what mansplaining was. And he went on and on. This went on for days, to the point where, and I shit you not, Paul Bullen ended up writing a Google Doc, which I have a copy of, right, in which he attempts to... It is the most just nitpickiest fucking... He attempts to explain in detail that is completely... If he had this much attention to detail to women's genitalia, we wouldn't be in this problem in the first place. Posted a tweet saying, "Since people misunderstood what I was saying in the recent controversy, I have written it down in plain English." And this Google document still exists. Now, this was back in February. This Google document was most recently updated in fucking November. Right? And it is, I shit you not, 49 pages long. Right? Now, if I'm going to regret asking this, if you would like me to attempt to go through Paul Bullen's, which is literally called, The Correct Word is Vagina by Paul Bullen. It literally is the title. If you'd like me to go through that, which would probably have to be a live stream, and probably when if I've got no fucking plans, then please let me know. But he was nearly beaten by recently when I came across this wonderful tweet by a guy called Brad Anderson, who now I can't find the original tweet, but this guy Brad Anderson, and this was back in May this year. He was responding to a feminist account on Twitter. He says, "I get the point you are trying to make, but I have yet to meet a hetero woman who enthusiastically participates in sex." Now, I just want to leave that there. That, because that guy. This is the power of ego. This is the power of self-delusion. This guy wrote that down because in his mind, there's something wrong with women, right? But what's even better is when you go through, what's even better is that I was going through I was looking around for this, and if there was anything else regarding this issue, and I found this story. This is on a website called Roll on Friday. This is an exclusive, on this website. And again, I have no idea what this website is, but this is the story. Exclusive: lawyer wrongly smeared as being terrible at sex. Now, if the tweet existing forever, in the annals of the internet is bad enough. Right? Imagine that headline, right, being written about you. Right? Now, the owner of a luxury boat company has been falsely smeared as a lawyer who is terrible in bed. In response to the state of Georgia passing a law which will make it illegal for women to obtain an abortion 6 weeks after conception, Alyssa Milano, a Hollywood actress, proposed women fight back with a sex strike. When a woman replied on Twitter that withholding sex from men also punishes women because this idea frames sex as some sort of as something hetero women are subjected to in rather than enthusiastic participants in, a user purporting to be a lawyer named Brad Anderson posted his rebuttal, and he posted that. Now, I just want you now. This is the thing. Now, there's loads of fucking. It's got loads of these different responses to it. Blah blah blah. It goes. A search for Anderson's account revealed unsavoury views, which were also quickly shared. Users who Googled his name and image found that Anderson was not only a lawyer, but the president of Sea Ray Boats, a luxury yacht company in Tennessee, and piled on to its social media channels. While thousands laughed at Anderson, his Twitter was swiftly suspended. But when Roll on Friday got in touch with Sea Ray Boats to find out how a lawyer in Ohio, who was also a boat builder in Tennessee, and also awful at sex and proud of it, it discovered that Anderson's detractors may have been catfished. I think the word you're looking for is trolled. Right. The company said that Anderson was not a lawyer and did not own that Twitter account. We recently were made aware of certain inflammatory remarks posted on social media, allegedly being made by a member of our leadership team. the company said. We immediately launched an investigation and concluded that an unidentified individual falsely created a social media personality to impersonate the member of our management. Okay, I'm going to call it now. Bull fucking shit. Bollocks. So someone just picked this random guy who works in the upper management for a luxury boat builders in Tennessee, and they decided to post that on the off chance that it went fucking rubbish. Absolute. Why would you do that? Yes, everyone laughing at Anderson, it claimed, had actually been tricked by an anonymous troll. Oh yes, we're the ones who look foolish. The panicked company said it was pursuing all available options, including notifying the appropriate law agencies and social media channels. Asterisks apparently, and also this. I'm gonna have to look at this website because they think it's apparently it is extremist to claim that Anderson has not pleased a woman. What? It's all the evidence I've got. So there you go, folks. So there you go. That's right. But without doubt, I'm going to do my favourite story of the last year, and this is not one of the major ones, and it involves It involves a YouTuber, and it was without doubt way back when the last European elections, people were running to be members of the European Parliament for various parties, and one of the people standing was a guy who made his name on YouTube. By the name of Carl Benjamin, known on YouTube as Sargon of Akkad. Now, he was representing UKIP. And at the time, people had suggested, and I was even vaguely considering, whether or not, because people might not, being on YouTube, I have a much more greater, encyclopedic, by comparison, knowledge of Sargon than your average, anyone really, but I didn't need to do that, because what Carl proceeded to do was set about what has to be. I can't think of a worse one. The single worst electoral campaign I have ever seen in my life, and when you consider some of the people that I have followed in my 40 years. Some of the disasters I've seen, and all I'm going to do to demonstrate this to you, and because I know that people are going to make excuses, I'm going to read to you every single headline of every article that appeared about Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin, during and this is important. This is during 2 weeks. This is a 2-week period. This is every story that appeared in the first 2 weeks of his MEP campaign. And this is a perfect... And what's more important is not just the article, because I can already hear apologists going, oh no, they twisted what he said. It doesn't matter. Right? Doesn't matter. Right? I'm not just going to read the headline so you know what the story is. I'm going to tell you the newspaper it came from. Right? This is in vaguely sort of order. Right, this was The Guardian. YouTuber accused of triggering rape threats could stand for UKIP. Bristol Live. Beefeater pub cancels booking for controversial MEP candidate Carl Benjamin after pressure from protesters. The Independent. UKIP candidate who used N-word defends himself by saying, I find racist jokes funny. The Daily Mail. UKIP candidate says it's okay to sexually abuse boys. The Daily Mirror. Twitter bans secret account apparently run by UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin. The Independent. Sky News, sorry. UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin defends the N-word, saying, I find face jokes funny. Sky News again. UKIP anger as candidate's Twitter suspended after racist video emerges. The Jewish Chronicle. UKIP candidate Carl Benjamin accused Jewish people of identity politics over the Holocaust. The Guardian. UKIP MEP candidate blamed feminists for the rise in misogyny. The Daily Mail. Now UKIP candidate who said he wouldn't even rape a Labour MP says it's okay to sexually abuse boys. Indy 100. The UKIP MEP candidate blamed feminism for the actions of a male mass murderer. The Independent. Sargon of Akkad, anti-feminist YouTuber, selected as UKIP candidate. PoliticsAtHome.com. UKIP deputy criticises leader Gerard Batten for defending candidate's rape remarks. Independent. UKIP leader Gerard Batten defends party candidate's rape tweet as satire. Gloucestershire Live. Gloucestershire UKIP leaders quit over rape tweet candidate. Right. Swindon Advertiser. Wiltshire police investigate MEP over rape tweet. The Daily Express. A YouTuber standing as a UKIP MEP invited supporters to a gaming community that has chat rooms filled with white supremacist and anti-Semitic content. The Independent. Nazi comparisons have never been more relevant in politics. It's time to repeal Godwin's law. Right. The most prophetic one was the most prophetic thing he said of all, and this was even before. This was in a Spiked article. Carl said, and I quote, "Anything you've ever said will be used against you." Oh, do you know what, Carl? If only you'd known back then what you fucking know now, bruv. Right, but here's the thing, the Sun newspaper. You what? UKIP unveils thug who talked dog Nazi salute and sicko who joked about raping MEPs. UKIP sex shame. Top UKIP candidate says it's okay to rape boys in YouTube rant. The Jewish News and the Times of Israel.com. UKIP candidate. I'm sorry about the Holocaust, but I don't give a shit. The Daily Express again. I might rape MP Jessica Phillips, says a UKIP candidate. UKIP candidate under siege for his rape comments enlists the help of Milo Yiannopoulos. This got to the point where Nigel Farage was on Good Morning Britain, and Nigel Farage branded UKIP, during this election as racist and vile. I have never, and if nothing else, Carl, you put me and Nigel Farage on the same fucking page. Now, obviously, they were always racist and vile. He's just saying that now because he's now against them. But what I want you to keep in mind is you can't even sit there. You can't sit there and claim that there was some bias against him. That was just the left-wing liberal media doing, because that was every newspaper, the Express, the Mail, the Mirror, the Independent, the Sun, the Guardian, right? The Jewish Chronicle, everything from every extreme on the spectrum, they were all covered, right? Now, if he just had like the Guardian and the Independent, saying that stuff, he could have fobbed it all off as it was just your basic left-wing liberal media stitch-up. But when you've got the Daily Express and the Sun and the Mail and the Independent and the Guardian and the BBC all on the same page, that's when you fucked up beyond all recognition, my friends. That's it. And don't sit there and say that it was... he had multiple interviews. In fact, he was interviewed on Sky News. Look for it. Go look for it on fucking YouTube still. Carl Benjamin being interviewed on Sky News. And he was asked to name 5 policies. He was asked to name 5 policies. Or 5 things. And the first thing he said was, what now? Right? No, Carl. Get back to us next week when you've had chance. Name 5 policies. And he sat there, scratched his head, and then thought, well, and he asked something to the effect of, well, how would you even implement policies as an MEP? That's what he said. He was given the opportunity to make this about issues, and he didn't even know. He knew nothing. He made it this was nothing. This was amazing. Even Nick Griffin would be like, for fuck's sake, mate, tone it down. You've just done, That was 2 weeks what I just read out to you. Everything from fucking offending Jews, black people, women, sexually abusing, it was all there. And he did it all. And but even what's even better is when it came to, obviously he lost the seat. They lost their seat. But 52,000 people still voted for him. Now, that might sound horrific to you, but the reason it's amazing is because that 52,000 people that voted, that was still 20,000 more people than who voted for Tommy Robinson. And also, given all that, I'm fucking, you should be lucky that, you only ended up with a fucking milkshake thrown over you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be the end. That is the end of the second part of the podcast. And thank you very much for listening. Please follow the podcast and follow my YouTube channels and consider supporting me on Patreon. And thank you very much. Here's to 2020. Let's hope. Let's hope we're still here next week. Good night. May God be less.
Well, I woke up this morning with a head full of poison and a sneaking suspicion that the end is coming soon. So I pulled back the curtains and I looked out the window, only to discover that my fears are coming true.